Hello, BookTube. Who's up for a mail haul? I have a small pile of packages here. It's nothing exorbitant. This will not be a 6 or 7 or 8 video day. We'll just go through these and we'll see what we have to add to the week's pile. It's Thursday and the week's pile of arrivals. I don't sort anything until the week is over, and the week's pile of arrivals is enormous. So this will just add to that pile. So I've got my assistant right here. We shall see what we have here. Oh, very good. Okay, this is Gordon Dillow. I requested this. These kind of books always please me. even if they're a trifle on the shallow side, they still always please me. And there's no way to know until you dig in. This is Fire in the Sky. Cosmic collisions, killer asteroids, and the race to defend Earth. And it comes out in June, so in the summer. Hurtling towards bookshelves in June. Okay, that's kind of good. Is a book that combines history, pop science, and in-depth reportage to uncover fascinating new details about asteroids that hit Earth long ago, potentially Hiroshima-scale blast asteroids heading towards Earth, and the defenses being prepared against asteroid-caused catastrophe. And that mix of sources that we're told about, what was it here? History, pop science, and in-depth reportage, that's worrying. But because two of those should cancel out the need for the third. Any two of those should cancel out the need for the third. Rich in detail and vast in scope. It's 175 pages long. Fire in the Sky is a scientific adventure story that takes us from the scenes of ancient asteroid impacts, like the one that wiped out the dinosaurs, to observatories where asteroid hunters seek their prey, to international conferences where experts enact asteroid war games. To preserve humanity, we must improve our ability to identify dangerous space objects speeding towards us and, just as critically, figure out how to deflect or destroy them if we can. Okay, so you can there are a couple of objections right away. First of all, despite the shorthand that has crept into the popular usage, it was not an asteroid strike that wiped out the dinosaurs. It was an asteroid impact that threw up an enormous amount of ejected material into the atmosphere, causing cloud cover, causing a worldwide, say it with me now, climate change. Yes, thousands of dinosaurs were incinerated, burned, baked alive from the fiery impact itself, but dinosaurs lived all over the world. They didn't just live in one little area, a few hundred miles in a concentric circle around an impact crater. They lived all over the world, and in the sea, and in the air. A cousin lived in the air, and it wasn't an asteroid impact. You could have 100 asteroid impacts. You wouldn't kill them all. That's not how it works. It's not a billiard ball. It's that the asteroid impact changed the climate of the planet, so that these creatures, who had adapted to every niche everywhere and were incredibly successful, human beings have been around for 250,000 years. Dinosaurs have been around for millions of years. Millions. It was only when the climate of the planet on which they lived changed. No more sunlight. Almost no photosynthesis. Drastic change in what they considered to be the normal process of the seasons. It was only when that happened that they failed, that they were wiped out. And it bears pointing out, I won't harp on you, but it bears pointing out that climactic global climate change can happen for all sorts of reasons. It doesn't have to be an asteroid. As I mention every time the subject comes up, we have one reality over Twilight Zone style alternate Earth right next to us in the solar system. The planet Venus is totally uninhabitable to life because of its climate, because it went into a rampant greenhouse effect that just kept trapping heat on the surface until the point where lead melts on the surface of Venus. And it wasn't an asteroid that did that. So that's quibble number one. And quibble number two with the pub sheet. I don't know if I'll quibble with the author at all. Actually, who is the author when he's at home? If I'm bragging on his book. He's a reporter, a columnist, and a war correspondent for more than 30 years. And he lives in northern Arizona. And the other quibble that I have with the pub sheet for his book is that it raises any kind of even faint science fiction-y hope that humans could do anything about an impending asteroid strike of catastrophic dimensions. I know that's a popular movie theme, Some wonderful popcorn movies have been made along those lines, but you should get that idea right out of your head. Okay, I don't know what this book is going to tell me, but I'm familiar enough with the subject already to know there is absolutely nothing that humans could do except watch it coming. And there are a number of objects near and far that their orbits can be calculated to within a hair's breadth, and there are a number of objects near and far meaning in time, near future, far future, that will come within whiskers of striking the Earth. And some of these objects are fairly large. One of them is enormous. One of them would certainly kill all life on this planet, except maybe extremophile life in the subterranean magma vents at the bottom of the ocean, which is where a lot of scientists hypothesize life originated on Earth anyway. But aside from those things, those extremophiles down there that could probably thrive on an impact and whose environment probably wouldn't be changed unless the oceans were just ripped away, everything else would die. If one of these objects that are known to NASA, they're known to the Chinese Space Agency, if one of these objects were to collide with Earth, that would be it. And we know they're out there. And we know the course of their orbits. We know when they'll make their near flybys. I myself have my eye on one of them. That is, I think, if I remember correctly, it will make its near pass in 2027. And the calculations, of course, they are fine, but they are not absolutely perfect. And the calculations for this object, I'm having trouble remembering its name or the date, so I'm no good to you. I'm no better than this pub sheet. But it is scheduled for a very, very near miss of Earth. The calculations that I've seen put it within the orbit of the moon. And that leads me to believe, I mean, if you were a space agency and you had the best equipment to do these calculations, and your calculations showed you that that object was in fact going to strike Tempe, Arizona, you wouldn't say anything. you wouldn't say anything. So it's entirely possible that there are a few astronomical wonkheads out there who know already that the end is, as it says, we're coming. But one way or another, this idea about asteroid busters setting up a nuke or something like that, absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. It could not in a million years happen. You could add 100 years to mankind's current level of technology, of exoplanet technology, and you still wouldn't be anywhere near close enough to do that. Nowhere near close enough to do that. So what we know from Earth, from its history, from its metallurgy, of its soil, is that Earth, like every other planet, has been bombarded with objects from space for its whole life, including, probably, a bombardment so colossal that it created the moon, an object almost the size of Earth, creating the moon. And certainly there was no life on the planet at that time, but there have been collisions when there was life on Earth, and it's wiped them out almost completely. Certainly an advanced and very precarious and also biologically defenseless species like humans would certainly die. Extremophiles, slugs, toads in the ground, something like that might live, but humans would die. And because we know that Earth and all other planets have been shooting galleries for these things throughout the millennia that the solar system has been forming and been in existence, we know that it's only a matter of time. That's the thing about these books. Fire in the Sky, or what was that other one? Panic at the Disco, or something like that. The one we had last month on asteroids and earthquakes and nuclear disasters and whatnot. The thing with a lot of these natural phenomena, asteroids or, for instance, mega volcanic eruptions, if you live on a tectonically active planet, is that they are inevitable. We are just flourishing in the caesura between two events. That's all. So, yes, we know all about the first event, but you can treat the second event, the other end of that gap, as every bit as certain as the first one. It just hasn't happened yet. But there's no chance that it's not going to happen. So that and that's why I love books like this, although I'll be irritated with this one if it gets my hopes up for some sort of Armageddon-style Bruce Willis daring do to get rid of one of these objects. If an object half the size of Manhattan is hurtling towards Earth, then all life on Earth is doomed. No, will Elon Musk put a nuclear payload into space to divert the thing? No. It's just that all life will be doomed. So isn't that a fun way to start the mail? So this comes out in June. You'll have the Willers scared out of you in June. But until then, we can just put it out of our minds and not think about it. This is one of the subjects that it actually doesn't pay to worry about, because there's nothing that can be done about it. 20 years ago, it very much would have paid to worry about climate change, catastrophic climate change on this planet. 20 years ago, you could have made a difference. Stopped it from reaching runaway proportions, where once it reached, as scientists said in the 2000s and the late 1990s, scientists said, if this reaches a runaway, if it starts to build on its own momentum, then that's game over. Then there's nothing you could do there. Not only will it happen without any intervention on your part, but it will happen faster. The speed will just start going right through the roof. And we're seeing that now. But 20 years ago, it would have paid to worry about this subject and other things too, like, for instance, nuclear safety. Of course, that's on my mind, because all I'm reading about these days is the Chernobyl disaster. And just know the way my luck runs with books, that the minute the flood of Chernobyl books ends, I will start to get a flood of Fukushima books. That's the same thing. And we will learn that the true extent and danger of the Fukushima reactor disaster was likewise hushed up and kept from the public. I remember seeing, in the weeks after Fukushima, graphs of the radiation contamination in the Pacific fish stock. And it was vast. It reached almost to the coast of the United States. And that graph was saying that because of the Fukushima radioactive event, those fish stocks were contaminated. A very simple sentence, but it means a lot more than the press ever made of it. And then you never saw it again. So, anyway, let's move on to the next book. We'll hope something a little happier than a killer asteroid from space. Although I gotta say, I have seen the dashboard camera footage. Since we're going long on this subject anyway, I've seen the dashboard camera footage of asteroid strikes, tiny meteoroid strikes in the Soviet Union and elsewhere, wherever dashboard cameras are common. And now that they are common, you catch these things, and they're amazing, horrifying in a way, but amazing. The famous one. You watch the dash cam footage and you see this bright object coming into view and getting brighter and brighter as it arcs across the horizon, and the brightness keeps going up until it's painful to look at the video. Imagine what it must have been like to have been staring at it yourself. And that impact blew out windows, burned people. And so I have to say, when it comes to this particularly, not runaway greenhouse effect, not nuclear disasters or anything like that, when it comes to a killer asteroid, something half the size of Manhattan that is headed for Earth, and that is going to strike Earth, I have to say, if that's going to happen, as macabre as it sounds, I would like to see it. I hope that I'm not elsewhere, or otherwise occupied. I hope that I get to see it. I hope it doesn't happen in another hemisphere. I hope I get to watch it happen. Just because, to quote from a great sage, there's something you don't see every day. Anyway, let's move on. Oh, now see, okay, this one is much nicer, unless you live in this world. So with Jennifer Helenek won't find this nicer, but the rest of us will. This is a novel. It's by Karen Duquesne, and it's called The Last Book Party. a very nondescript advanced cover. That's what the cover is actually going to look like. A woman reading. And I requested this because it looks just fantastic. It looks like Insider Baseball. This comes out in July, and the first whole page of the pub sheet is advanced blurbs. People just loving this thing. Let's see here. Karen Duquesne danced around writing fiction for decades. Now 56, she has an editorial secretary at Little Brown and an assistant at a literary agency in the 1990s, a time when manuscripts still came in over the transom. I guess from that they don't anymore. In cardboard boxes, and assistants took dictation for typewritten letters that were sent in the mail. She became a newspaper reporter and then a speechwriter at the United Nations. Finally, she accepted the idea that writing fiction is not so much magic as it is hard work. Good for her. That's exactly true. There is never going to be a good time. Now is the time. Or NaNoWriMo. If you want to put it off, I give you permission to put it off only until November, and then you must join me in NaNoWriMo. And she hunkered down to write her debut novel. So she's in her 50s, and this is her debut book. And let's see, the book's description. Let's see. In the summer of 1987, 25-year-old Eve Rosen is an aspiring writer languishing in a low-level assistant job. Unable to shake the shadow of growing up with her brilliant brother Danny. With her professional ambitions floundering, Eve jumps at the chance to attend an early summer gathering at the Cape Cod home of famed New Yorker writer Henry Gray and his poet wife Tilly. Dazzled by the guests and her burgeoning crush on the host's artistic son, Eve lands a job as Henry Gray's research assistant and an invitation to Henry and Tilly's exclusive end-of-summer book party, where attendees dress as literary characters. But by the end of the night of the party, Eve discovers uncomfortable truths about her summer entanglements and understands that the literary world she so desperately wanted to be a part of is not all what it seems. To put it mildly. A page-turning coming-of-age story written with lyrical sense of self, of place, and a profound appreciation for the sustaining power of books. The last book party shows what happens when youth and experience collide with what it takes to find your own voice. So the author is going to plumb the depths of a world she knows really well in order to write this, her debut book. And I love debut novels anyway. I especially love debut novels when they are written by authors who have been around the track a couple of times instead of dewy-eared ingenues straight from the University of Iowa Writers Workshop. So this looks very promising. So this is July, and that is a nice change of pace from Killer Asteroids. So all right, let's move on. Are you ready for another one, Bean? Oh my God! Will you look at the mess that you have made? Oh my God! Can you see that book too? No, you really can't make it out. The floor is covered with litter. She's just made confetti out of these things. Yes? All right, what do we got next here? Oh. All right. Okay. Wow, I did not know this was coming. This is from the great folks at Yale University Press. This comes out in late May. And it is The World of the Crusades by Christopher Tyerman, who wrote God's War, the best book on the Crusades that I've ever read. Okay, so what is The World of the Crusades? And I like that little disclaimer at the bottom is an illustrated guide. So I'm wondering if this is... I'm wondering what it's going to look like. Oh my. Okay, so even the advanced copy is covered in artwork. It's all black and white. Okay, it's all black and white, and as you can see, some of the files have not finished compiling. That one is all digitized. I guarantee you there are no Byzantine mosaics that have digitalized faces. Oh, that's later. That's in our own time. This is going to have... Okay, so this is going to be a guide to the Crusades that is heavy on illustration. Fantastic. Whereas God's War was more heavy on scholarship. God's War is a book to get. It's a book to find. It's huge. Absolutely huge. Might be good from March of the Mammoths. If you're looking for a really long book and you want to get out of the kiddie pool of fiction, you can always try your hand at a nice long 1,100-page book about the Crusades. But one way or another, although the Crusades have never been one of my favorite topics in history, I know this author. I have been with this author now in long books, and I love the way he writes about them. So that wipes out the reservation right there. So what do we got here? Throughout the Middle Ages, crusading was justified by religious ideology, but the resulting military campaigns were fueled by concrete objectives: land, resources, power, reputation. Crusaders amassed possessions of all sorts, from castles to reliquaries. Campaigns required material funds and equipment, while conquest produced bureaucracies, taxation, economic exploitation, and commercial regulation. Wealth sustained the Crusades, while material objects, from weaponry to military technology to carpentry to shipping, conditioned them. In this lavishly illustrated The World of the Crusades, the author Christopher Tyerman considers the material trappings of crusading wars and the objects that memorialized them in architecture, sculpture, jewelry, painting, and manuscripts. Okay, so this is, no wonder it's illustrated. So this is going to be more a visual guide, more, what was the world of the Crusades in terms of their buildings, their artwork, their lands, that sort of thing, as opposed to God's War was more of a narrative history of what went on and who done who wrong. Here, Bean, leave it alone. You've got a floor covered in food. You're chewing in a package. Tyerman's incorporation of the physical and visual remains of crusading enriches our understanding of how the Crusaders themselves articulated their mission. Okay, well, to put it mildly, I have read many illustrated histories of the Crusades. They lend themselves to that because very exotic and wide-ranging. And Oxford did one that I loved. I had it for a long time. I don't think I still do, but I had it for a long time. But this has the added allure of a great author, so fantastic. I'm right there. All right, let's move on. Bean was already nosing around biting at this package. It has tooth marks in it now, so I might as well just give it to her. You are spoiled little Valentine. You know that? Oh, what have we got here? Okay. All right. This is odd. This is very odd. This is odd for a number of reasons. This is by Charles Shields, who is a biographer of Harper Lee, and it's called "The Man Who Wrote the Perfect Novel." The subtitle is John Williams, Stoner and the Writing Life. And the title of the book and the subtitle don't go together at all, do they? What does John Williams, Stoner and the Writing Life have to do with Henry Fielding and the novel Tom Jones? I have no idea. Maybe the pub sheet will tell us. The other odd thing is that this was from October of 2018, which might as well have been October of 1921, as far as the book reviewer is concerned. The conversation about this book has long since moved on. It had, I'm sure, some... what have we got here? When Stoner was published in 1965, the novel sold only a couple of thousand copies. You'll never go broke, underestimating the stupidity of the reading public. Before disappearing with hardly a trace, where it should have stayed. Yet John Williams' quietly powerful tale of a Midwestern college professor, William Stoner, whose life becomes a parable of solitude and anguish, eventually found an admiring audience in America, especially in Europe. Well, 13 million Frenchmen can't be wrong. The New York Times called Stoner, very belatedly, a perfect novel. And it wasn't the New York Times, it was one drunken writer who said that. And a host of writers and critics, including Colin McCain, Julian Barnes, Bret Easton Ellis, Ian McEwan, Emma Staub, Ruth Rendell, C.P. Snow, and Irving Hall, praised its artistry. Not unqualifiedly, though. Half of those names praised its artistry in some places, and damned it in other places of the same essays. The New Yorker deemed it, quote, a masterly portrait of a truly virtuous and dedicated man, which John Williams meant to be him. He'd have loved reading that. The Man Who Wrote the Perfect Novel traces the life of Henry Fielding, the author of Tom Jones. No. It traces the life of Stoner's author, John Williams. Acclaimed biographer Charles J. Shields follows the whole arc of Williams' life, from infatuated childhood to infatuated middle age to rancorous self-pity, which in many ways paralleled that of his titular character. Do tell! From their shared working-class backgrounds to their undistinguished careers in the halls of academia. Inept to their incompetent careers in the halls of academia. Shields masterfully recounts Williams' development as an author. Pointed out to me. This author never met an improvement in writing that he didn't hate and scorn. Is pointed out to me. You read any one of his wretched books. They're all exactly the same. Whose other works include the novels Butcher's Crossing and Augustus. Shields also reveals the astonishing afterlife of Stoner, which gathered new fans with each American reissue and then became a bestseller all over Europe after Dutch publisher Lebowski brought out a translation in 2013. Since then, Stoner has been published in 21 countries and sold over 1 million copies. Okay, well, of all the mysteries about this, first of all, it's not about Henry Fielding. Instead, it's about the incredible navel-gazing, self-impressed, third-rate hack author of an incredibly boring and turgid piece of autofiction. So it's not about the man who wrote the perfect novel. It's not about the perfect novel, and it's also not even remotely new. It came out in October. So I don't know what it's doing here. I mean, I have nothing but absolute love here on Valentine's Day for the folks at University of Texas Press, but I don't know why they sent this to me. I very politely ignored it the first time around because there's nothing I could do about it. It wouldn't just be raillery from beginning to end. And that's not healthy, even for a 28-year-old. I ignored it. I very politely ignored it the first time around. I am certainly going to ignore it now that it's not new. That it's half a year old. So I don't quite know. I don't quite know why I got it. All right, well let's move on. We have one more to do. Here, what an odd mail. We have one more to do. And it's 2 books. Okay. This is Plastic Bean. She's going to make a lot of noise. This one will make a lot of noise. The plastic ones don't fracture like she likes them to. Huh. Okay. So this looks like there's 2 finished copies. This is, the first one is by Deanna Rayborn, who a lot of you will know. She is delightful. She is absolutely delightful. Let's see here. This is a dangerous collaboration. It's a Veronica Speedwell mystery. I know the Lady Julia Gray novels. I don't think I know this series. I don't think I know the Speedwell novels. I'm not even sure if is this the first one. Well, let's find out. This comes out in mid-March. It has a totally different look from the Julia Gray novels. If you haven't read this author's atmospheric historical murder mystery starring Julia Gray, you really need to. They are wonderful, and there's a whole bunch of them. What is this, though? Let's see. Though a lepidopterist by trade, hence the butterfly net, Veronica Speedwell has been up to much more than chasing after rare specimens of butterflies. Continuing on after the exhilarating adventures of a curious beginning, a perilous undertaking, and a treacherous curse. Okay, this is the 4th book in a series. It's difficult to imagine how the spunky and spirited Victorian-era sleuth could find herself caught up in even more thrilling and dangerous exploits. But young Miss Speedwell does not disappoint in a dangerous collaboration. The author's highly anticipated 4th installment in the Veronica Speedwell mystery series. Perfect for March Mystery Madness. Just add another one to the pile. I might very well be able to do. Now that I made the decision to sort of hold off on late February mysteries until March, I might very well be able to talk about a new mystery every day in March. Wouldn't that be fun? And this would be one of them. All I have to do is read these things, but reading them is no trial. Especially not this author. This author's really good. Let's see here. After chasing down clues leading to her mysterious past, having quite literally run off to join a traveling circus, solving a murder mystery at a ladies-only social club, and unraveling an ancient Egyptian curse, Veronica always goes back to her true love, butterflies. But as colorful and unfettered as the butterflies she collects, Veronica can't resist the allure of an exotic mystery, particularly one involving her enigmatic, frequently uncouth, yet ruggedly handsome colleague, Stoker. Veronica is whisked off to a remote island off the tip of Cornwall when Stoker's brother, Tiberius, calls in a favor. On the pretext of wanting a companion to accompany him to Lord Malcolm Romilly's house party, Tiberius persuades Veronica to pose as his fiancée, much to Stoker's chagrin. But upon arriving, it becomes clear that the party is not as innocent as it seemed. Every invited guest has a connection to Romilly's wife, Rosamund, who disappeared on her wedding day 3 years ago, and the dramatic dinner proves she is very much on her husband's mind. And probably still alive, right? If we know mystery series. As spectral figures, ghostly music, and mysterious threats begin to plague the partygoers, Veronica enlists Stoker's help to discover the host's true motivations. And as they investigate, it becomes clear that there are numerous mysteries surrounding the Romilly estate, and every person present has a motive to kill Rosamund. All right, a Victorian country house murder. Oh, fantastic. Okay, well that some aspects of that echo the Julia Gray series, but this seems like it's going to be a lot more of a stress on whimsicality and fun. Although the Julia Gray novels had a tongue-in-cheek humor throughout that really surprised. I remember encountering that the first time. In the very first paragraph of the very first book, I encountered that and thought, oh, don't usually see that. It takes an extra amount of confidence for an author to do that, right? Humor takes more work than anything on the printed page. And so an author has to be pretty confident to add that to the mix. That's why I love mystery authors, because so many of them do that. So many of them do feel confident enough in their own skill, in their own voice, to work in an element of humor. Of course, the ones who don't, very much don't. They don't want anything to do with anything whimsical or humorous. But the ones who do, they're a lot of fun. We'll talk all about it in March. In March, we are going to talk about mysteries all the time. March Mystery Madness. Mark your calendar. One of the many things you will be doing in March. You will be reading a mystery novel every week for March Mystery Madness. You will be reading a book of over 800 pages every week, a different book, for March of the Mammoths. You will be doing an ancient Roman classic, a different one every week for the Ides of Marchathon. And you will be reading 15 chapters of Pride and Prejudice every week for our read-along on this channel. And whatever you have to cut from your schedule, whatever kind of fat you have to trim, whether it be those caterwauling, bratish kids of yours, or that good-for-nothing spouse, or that boring job, get rid of it all. Okay? Because those are your commitments in March. They come first. So anyway, now that the cult speech is over, this comes out in mid-March, and sounds like a lot of fun. A Lepidopterist. I have missed the others. I don't know why, because I know I like this author. I must just have thought, I probably had one of those knee-jerk reactions that readers sometimes have where you see that an author is starting something, a different series, and you think, I'll just wait until the author goes back, gives me another book in the series that I like. Ridiculous. Ridiculous that I'm still experiencing that after 28 years of being a sexy reader. I should be over bad reflexes like that. An author can prove themselves once, will prove themselves again. So I'm looking forward to this. And what is the next? Oh! Okay. Talk about an author who can prove himself. Oh, fantastic. All right. We saw an advance copy of this, I think. And this is the finished copy. This is also coming out this comes out in February. Yeah, this is right around the corner. And this is a wholehearted recommendation. You've heard me recommend this series before. If this is your cup of tea, you absolutely have to be reading this series. And if it's not your cup of tea, this author is so engaging, he might make it your cup of tea. You might want to give it a try. This is the Gray Man series by Mark Greaney, and this is Mission Critical. This is the latest Gray Man book, which comes out on February 19th. I guess it's probably a Tuesday. Let's see here. I don't think I am blurbed on here. I love writing about these books, but the publicists for Greene seem to be able to go, they seem to have places they want to go to get their blurbs, and I'm not one of them. No, I'm not blurbed in here. Okay, but what have we got here for Mission Critical? I think I read about this before, but it's worth doing again. It has the embossed letters and everything. These are so much fun. Oh my. Mark Greaney's Gray Man is the fastest growing thriller series in the publishing industry. I wonder if that's true. Or if that's just pub sheet boilerplate. I wonder if that's true. That would be great. That so seldom happens to the books that deserve it. That would be great. And Berkley is thrilled to publish the latest installment featuring Cortland Court Gentry. Not Dalton Gentry. I know when you think of broad-shouldered, washboard-abbed action heroes, you think Dalton Gentry, but this is actually Court Gentry. When Mark's previous book, Agent in Place, hit the Publishers Weekly bestseller list the past year, PW highlighted his first week sales increase over the preceding years, an upward trajectory of double-digit percentage growth of each Gray Man book since 2013's Deadeye. And that I believe completely, because the minute you encounter one of these books, the minute you read a couple of chapters, you realize, okay, this is the good stuff. This is what I want. I'm willing to put up with substandard plotting and, weak characters and bad action sequences from all the other Clancy-esque, Bourne-esque thriller series that I read. I'm willing to put up with all that bad stuff for the occasional good scene. And then you read one of these books, a Gray Man book, and you think, oh, okay, here's one where I don't have to put up with anything. This is just what I was waiting for. I don't doubt at all that sales numbers have increased for every one of these, and through the best metric possible, by word of mouth. By word of mouth. That is the best thing. That is so much better than your publisher spending $30,000 to take out a full-color ad in the New York Times. Word of mouth is rock solid. Word of mouth or the recommendation of trusted booksellers. But as we've mentioned on this channel before, as retail bookstores cut their staff, especially their experienced staff, people are going to have a harder and harder time finding those kind of booksellers, which once used to be common in the landscape. Fortunately, you all have BookTube to come to one specific place on BookTube. So let's find out what we have here. Each Gray Man book receives stellar reviews, with Mark being praised for his high-octane storytelling. That's from the Washington Post. Described as among the top authors of espionage. That's the South Florida Sun Sentinel. I've never written for them. Kind of like to. And the best in the business, according to Suspense Magazine. Didn't even know Suspense Magazine existed. I'd also like to write for them. This series has continuously drawn comparisons to the giants of the field. But can we have a bit of the plot? Maybe? Mark Greaney also co-wrote Clancy's final 3 Jack Ryan thrillers, and they are amazingly good. They are those final 3. If you see they're all gigantic doorstops. They're like a Houston phone book. But if you see one of those at the library or at a used book sale, and you see Tom Clancy's name, Big as Life, and then you see with Mark Greaney, get those because they are really good. They're really, really good. It would be unkind for me to say they are noticeably better than anything that Clancy himself ever wrote, because we don't want to speak ill of the dead on this channel, do we? Let's see. For years, court gentry was the CIA's best covert asset. Then, without warning, the agency put him at the top of its kill list. Court fled the country and became the enigmatic killer for hire known only as the Gray Man. However, after a tense reconciliation of sorts, Court begrudgingly finds himself working for his former government overseers. I myself didn't see that coming, even though it's a perfectly logical plot development that, of course, he would go back to the CIA. I didn't think it was possible after the first few books in the series, and it was believable. It was believably done. I love how they put "of sorts," a tense reconciliation of sorts, because it's nobody trusts anybody. He especially doesn't trust them. Mission Critical opens with Court on a CIA transport plane when a security team brings a hooded man aboard. The mysterious passenger is being transported to England, where a joint CIA M16 will interrogate him about a mole at Langley. Upon landing at an isolated airbase in the UK, they are attacked by a hostile force that kidnaps the prisoner. Gentry, the lone survivor, is ordered to track down the assassins and rescue the asset. At the same time, Court's sometimes lover and fan favorite, Zoya Zakharova, escapes an attack at the CIA safe house in Virginia with a team of killers following her. Both Court and Zoya, each on a different continent, are battling blind against their pursuers, but each may be holding the piece of the puzzle that the other needs to survive. I have the advanced copy of this, and as you all know, I've been incredibly backlogged, so I haven't got to it. And now I'm going to. I often say that the arrival of a finished copy is like a kick in the behind for me to get to work on reading these books that I'm behind on, and this is one of those that I don't need any more urging than that. This is right around the corner. Fantastic. Oh, a new Gray Man novel. That is just wonderful. All right, so these are actually 2 proven authors, just one series that I don't know and one that I do. So we have the new Gray Man novel, Mission Critical. We have A Dangerous Collaboration, which is a Veronica Speedwell mystery. She's an avid lepidopterist who solves murder mysteries in the Victorian era. But from Deanna Raybourn, who did the Julia Gray novels, so not an unknown quantity. Then The Man Who Wrote the Perfect Novel, about Henry Fielding and the composition of Tom Jones. Then The World of the Crusades by Christopher Tyerman. Big, lavishly illustrated look at the houses, the fields, the possessions and whatnot of the Crusaders and the various centuries of the Crusades. A wonderful visual companion, it sounds like, to his massive book God's War, which is an incredible work on the Crusades. Then The Last Book Party, a debut novel from someone who waited and waited and waited and finally decided, if I'm ever going to do this, I have to buckle down and just work at it. Wonderful. And Fire in the Sky, the latest book about killer asteroids coming for you. But again, you have my permission not to worry about it, because there's nothing, despite what this book is going to try to tell me, there's nothing that humans can do to save themselves from such a thing. We are just lucky. That's all. We're an incredibly lucky species. We always have been. And we are just lucky that these massive species-ending catastrophes have not managed to kill us off. The Toba volcano was a super eruption. Could easily, if it had been a little bit worse, if it had lasted a day longer, it could easily have made the climatic conditions on the surface of the Earth impossible for human beings. And the human species would have died out. It came awful close to dying out anyway. It would have died out completely. Other species would have lived, just like other species survived the comet impact, whose after effects killed the dinosaurs. But we have been lucky, very lucky. And the whole thing about runs of luck is that eventually they end. It's nobody's fault. It's not evil or good. It's just the way things are. It's just probability. When it happens, it'll happen. But I can't wait to see, even so, I can't wait to see what this book will tell me about the subject. So almost all of these, really make me want to read them right away, which I cannot do. So I'm going to have to prioritize. And it's not going to be hard to pick my priorities in this case. And oh my God, look at this video. Why didn't you stop me? We've got 40 minutes. I'm going to stop this for now. Oh my God. I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.